Hi guys, and welcome to our second round of Premier League predictions for the 2025-26 season. We're going to be approaching game week 2, and there's some really interesting matches to look forward to. Season started with a bang as usual. There's a lot of interesting talking points and a lot of vulnerabilities for some teams. I'm going to be joined again by Jack from the Betting Island team. Jack, it's good to have you with us.
Yeah, very good to be here again, Lewis. Looking forward to another exciting weekend of fixtures.
Yeah, it should be really good this weekend. There's a few standout games as usual. The one that caught my eye initially was I think it's the Saturday lunchtime game, Man City against Spurs. I don't know what your thoughts are about that one.
Yeah, very exciting one. Both sides started very strong. Spurs definitely looked a lot better than they did last season. Better defensively as well. I know it was a poor enough Burnley side, but they definitely look a bit better. But City looked very strong now last weekend. They looked a lot back to their best again against the poor enough Wolves team. But this will be a test for both sides. I think there'll be goals in this one.
I'd agree. I think this is similar. I think it has similarities with the Liverpool Bournemouth game last year. It might not be quite as many goals, but I think there's a there's a lot of attacking potential in both teams. I think City look the best of all the top six teams at the weekend. They've got a strong squad with players like Haaland and Stones and Diaz fit. They look a real force again. I think for Spurs, they were everything you'd expect under Thomas Frank. They were very organised, very compact. The willingness to play quite direct, I think, suits them. The players they have, especially without James Maddison. And they're obviously a threat at set pieces. Got some innovative plays and some big players as well. So, yeah, I think I can see both teams scoring in this game, which you can get on quite a competitive price at 1.64. So I think that adds value. If you think City will win, which I do think they'll edge you, you can also bet on obviously over 2.5 goals being scored in the game. But yeah, I think it should be a really interesting one to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I was looking at the over 2.5 goals as well myself because I think Spurs will score, but I think
Yeah.
City will be too strong for them, and they looked really good at the weekend. Even lots of their new signings were very good as well. Reinders looked really good, a goal and an assist. It's kind of like they didn't really miss De Bruyne at all, really, with some of the players they had in there. So I definitely think, yeah, City to win, but I think they'll be over 2.5 goals for sure.
Yeah, just a final one on this one. I did notice in the goal scorer markets, you can get on Haaland at 2.9 as the first goal scorer. These markets are higher risk. Obviously, you have to
Mm,
factor that in. But he's got a good record against Spurs. I think he's got
mm.
4 goals in 6 games. Seems to like playing against them, and obviously he looked really sharp at the weekend. So might be something to consider if you're looking for a bet with slightly higher odds.
Yeah, and he did get the first goal last weekend as well. So, and scoring twice, he'll definitely be full of confidence going into this game. I think another match that's definitely a standout is the Monday night game. Lots
Yeah.
involved here, not on the field and off the field between Newcastle and Liverpool. What are you thinking here?
I think it's going to be a really white hot atmosphere. Obviously, the tension with Isak, we know he's not going to play. I doubt
Mm,
he's going to have moved by then either, so it's going to be a
yeah,
massive factor in the game. I think it's always a tough place to go play, St James's Park, but I think it's going to be even harder for Liverpool. We touched on them last weekend. We said we thought that they'd be in an open, high-scoring game, which they were. They've got problems to solve, Liverpool, and how open
mm,
they are. Verts obviously made them look even better going forward in the 10 role, but they were very open in midfield, especially without a fullback inverting and tucking in. I think a lot in this game will depend on Gravenberch coming back. He's a
mm.
key player for Liverpool, but also how is Slot going to accommodate him? Is he going to be willing to say move Verts over to the left, maybe sacrifice a Gakpo, bring in another midfielder just to make them a bit more solid? Because if you look at that Newcastle midfield three, especially with Tonali, Joe Linton, it's so powerful.
Mm.
They run over teams, and Howe always has them well organised and compact. They're a big team, so I think a lot will depend on what Slot does tactically. But I do think this could be a game if you're looking for a result where maybe the outsider wins. I've got a feeling Newcastle might just edge this game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very tricky one for Liverpool, as you mentioned. The atmosphere will
Yeah,
be unbelievable, as if it would have been anyway at St James's first home game of the season. But even Anthony Gordon and a few have already discussed about the stuff going on in the background, how it'll edge them on a bit. So I think the first goal will be very important in this game. If Newcastle get the first goal, Liverpool could be in serious trouble.
yeah,
So as you said, if they get overrun midfield, I do agree. I think Slot should put in another sort of have Verts in on the left maybe and have Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai, so you kind of have the four of them in and around somewhere. But I think again goals is the way to go here. It was 3-3 when they played here last year, so I'm thinking even the over 3.5 goals market is 2.48 with Unibet. I think that's one that stood out to me. I think I can see it ending in a 2-2 draw. If I'm being honest, I think I really find it hard for Liverpool to win here in this one, just because of the frailties they showed last weekend.
I totally agree. I think I agree with you in the goals market. I think over 3.5 unlocks a little bit of additional value. Obviously, I definitely think they'll be over 2.5 if you want to play it a bit safer. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that like I said, a lot will depend on how things go tactically. I just feel like it's a game where even if you look at Newcastle's front line, the pace of Alanga will cause a problem for Liverpool. We saw they had problems, but they're bedding in new fullbacks. They play differently to the players they're used to. And I think they're having problems out wide as well. So I think Alanga will exploit that. He's so quick and so direct. So yeah, I agree with you on the goals market. But like I say, if you do fancy a slight outside pick, or you want to pick a team that you think might get a result, Newcastle are priced at around, it's over 3. I think it's 3.40 with the option bet. So it's one of those bets where, again, high risk. But if you do, it's my pick this weekend. For if there is going to be a surprise result, I think it could be the one.
Perfect. Moving on now, a game on the Saturday evening game, Arsenal against the newly promoted Leeds. Both teams victorious in match day one with 1-0 victories. Arsenal's of course coming at Old Trafford. So how do you see this one going?
I think it's strange. I watched Arsenal the weekend, and they seem to have a little bit of an identity crisis. They did last season as well. I'm not sure what type of team Mikel Arteta wants them to be. I feel like obviously they're big and strong and they're good at set pieces, but obviously the early Arteta teams were very fluid in how they played, how they moved the ball. This team seems a bit clunkier. They're not as attractive to watch. And at Old Trafford, they weren't particularly interested in keeping the ball, which is unlike them. They launched a lot of quite fast. I think they launched the second highest number of what they call direct attacks, where they move the ball quickly and counter. So I'm not quite sure what team they want to be. Some of their peak players, Odegaard and Saka, look a bit off form. Obviously, Gyökeres looks a little lacking in sharpness and like he's going to take some time to adjust. So, although I think Arsenal will win this game, and I think they might win it by even by a couple of goals, maybe a relatively comfortable margin, I do feel like if there is a chance for Leeds to go and get a decent result or put in a good performance there, it's probably a game like this.
Yeah, they had their win last night there against Everton.
Yep.
I think Leeds and Arsenal were sort of similar in the way they played at the weekend. Like there was lots of chances in their games. There were two sort of Arsenal kind of, once they got the lead, that was it for them. They kind of sat in a bit against United and ended up just grinding out the result. So I think again, the first goal will be important this game. I do see Arsenal set pieces again. They're such a threat from them, but Leeds. So I think there was a stat put up by Sky yesterday. Leeds had 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" players in their ranks, and their goalie 6'6". So I think Leeds will definitely be able to halt Arsenal's set pieces in this game. So Arsenal are going to have to find a different way about scoring. I think it's the kind of perfect game for them for their second game after last week, a home game against the newly promoted side.
Yeah, I agree.
Leeds got their win. The pressure's off them slightly early on. So I think Arsenal will win this game, and just how strong they are at the back, I think they will keep a clean sheet. Unibet Arsenal to win to 0 without Leeds scoring is even money 2.0. So I think that's more valuable than a Arsenal win, which is quite low odds for this one.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's a really good pick. I noticed that as well. I think they're so strong defensively, and they were at Old Trafford. I think it's one of those games where I think Arsenal might be, like I said, they might struggle at times to break them down, but I think the difference in quality is so big. And I think the depth now in Arsenal's squad, so they will have enough to beat Leeds. I also noticed that, I mean, there's also like the handicap market. I wouldn't go very big with this game, but you could use a nominal handicap of minus 1.5 goals. Arsenal increases the price to 1.80 at Lunibet. So, I like I said, I do see Arsenal winning that. I don't think they'll overrun Leeds, but I think you can easily see them winning by a couple of goals. So yeah, I think aim for those markets maybe, but certainly don't predict Arsenal to win by a massive margin.
Right, moving on to the Friday night game, West Ham and Chelsea. Both sides sort of struggling in their opening week, especially West Ham being beaten by Sunderland. Chelsea didn't really break Palace down. This It's an important game for both sides this early in the season. What do you think?
Yeah, I think West Ham and Graham Potter are in real trouble potentially. Obviously, he's had a pre-season. He was there for quite a while last season, and they didn't perform particularly well. I don't. Again, West Ham don't seem to really be doing a great deal in games against Sunderland. They had a lot of the ball, 62.8% of the ball, which is what you'd expect with Graham Potter's teams, but they just couldn't do anything with it. There was no energy or no sharpness to the attack, and they just look so weak defensively, especially on the counter attack and at set pieces. They've got all the hallmarks of a team that are going to struggle. They need to find some goals, and I think there's a stat. I think he's won 25% of his games at West Ham out of 20. So it's 5 out of 20 since he's joined, which is a terrible record. I think we compare him to his predecessor. They're slightly better defensively, but in terms of their goals, their XG, their attempted shots, they're so much lower. And I think, although they've been better defensively under Potter slightly, I do feel that Chelsea will get a bit more space playing away from home.
Yeah.
I think if you can get Palmer on the ball, which he wasn't able to do against Palace, who was so well drilled and just sat in, I think Chelsea should have a bit too much for West Ham here.
Yeah, I'd agree especially on your point about the more openness. Stamford Bridge is sort of a tighter ground.
Yeah.
So when Palace arrive and sit in, it is harder for Chelsea to break teams down. The West Ham London Stadium, open pitch. I think it'll suit Chelsea down to the ground, and I could see them winning by a couple of goals here. West Ham will have to produce something, so I do think West Ham will score.
Yeah.
But I think Chelsea will have too strong for them. I think the over 2.5 mark at 1.7 is what I'd be going for here. I think first game of the weekend, the Friday game, both sides under a bit of pressure. I think they'll have to give it a go. I don't see them being too tentative about this game. The pressure to come on, even with Chelsea, the pressure could come on Maresca, because as a Chelsea manager, the pressure sort of always on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Not delivering the results. So I think both sides will have to come out and give it a go, and I think there could be goals.
I tend to agree. I think with Chelsea, I think one thing that I think that is in their favour. I think last year they got criticism because they were a bit too inflexible in how they tried to play. I think if you saw at the Club World Cup when they took on PSG and they were willing to sort of let PSG have the ball a little bit and counter them. I think you could almost do the same at West Ham. If you know a team's going to want to dominate the ball, but they don't have much in attack, Chelsea have got really those really quick wingers, really good movement in attack. So I could see them almost at times, letting West Ham have the ball a little bit, picking it off and countering them. So I agree on the over. I agree on the over under. Chelsea in the money line to win outright at 1.67. It's not a huge value, and it's probably not a bet I would necessarily go for. But if you like straightforward betting, those odds aren't too uncompetitive, given that Chelsea have got a significantly better team than West Ham. So it may also be one to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one as well. The odds for that isn't overly low, so it's not too bad if you wanted to combine it maybe with something else.
Yeah.
Finally, our last game we look at this weekend is on the Sunday afternoon, Fulham and Man United. This is an interesting one for me. I think Fulham at home, are always a tough team to beat, and again the pressure will be on United after defeating the opening game. How do you see this one going?
I think it's an interesting game, but I mean, it's really interesting actually looking at if you look at the corresponding fixture last season, it was a pretty awful game to watch. I think there was about 13 shots in the whole game, 4 on target. I think United edged it with a deflected goal. So I think the problem Fulham have is they've kind of maybe stagnated slightly. The end of last season was not brilliant, and then they haven't really signed too many players in the summer. Against Brighton on the weekend, they looked a little sluggish, didn't really have a lot of creativity in the team. So I think one thing we know about Fulham is they're hard to break down. They're very well drilled, and they also keep the ball quite well. They're quite orderly. They're not easy to play against. United, for their part, I think again, people maybe made a little bit too much of the improvement against Arsenal. They were better, but again, didn't really create that many clear-cut chances. I don't think Raya made many outstanding saves, and I think they might find it hard to break down. So I think in this game, I'm definitely looking at not many goals, and under 2.5 goals I think is the way to go in this match. I can't see it being a particularly open or thrilling game. But yeah, I think low scoring match. I do think United will edge it if you're interested in combination betting. But I think you can get on United at 2.22 to win outright at Lunibet, and under 2.5 goals is priced at an even 2. So I think you could combine those or just aim for the goals market, but I definitely don't expect to see a lot of goal mouth action in this one.
Yeah, I bang on. I agree with everything you've said there. United, a lot was said that they improved, but then we mentioned last week that they tend to do well against the bigger teams last
Yeah.
season as well. So yeah, I think like they didn't score, they didn't really create much, and they conceded a sloppy set piece. So
Yeah.
I think it was a lot like kind of what they done last season. They just weren't clinical and conceded a sloppy goal. So I think I'm a broken record now here, but I definitely think the first goal is important in this game
No, I agree.
again. If Fulham get it, United's confidence could be really low. But no, I think it'll be a low scoring game, but I do see United just edging it. Maybe Sesko or one of their new signings will pop up and just edge the victory today and ease the tension at Man United again for another while.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think the Sesko thing could be crucial. I mean, he didn't do a huge amount when he came on, but you can see his presence. He did have a lot of touches in the box, and he looked busy. And I think it'll impact the forward line. Should be sharp enough and fit enough to start on Sunday. So I think he could make the difference if Cunha's there as well. He looked really good against Arsenal, and obviously Mbeumo brings pace. I think if United do get some chances on transition, especially, which is where they still look more dangerous. Yeah, I can see them nicking this game, but definitely I'm around the goals market. The money line might be a little bit too unpredictable.
Yeah. So that concludes our weekend fixtures for game week 2 of the Premier League. Hopefully it's as exciting as game week 1 and there's as many goals in it. Thanks, Lewis, as usual, for being here, and make sure to visit betinireland.ie for more predictions and news. Thank you very much. See you next time.
See you next time, Jack. Take care.